come from?
Gentlemen, do you realize what we've found?
It came from outer space to fill the world with terror.
What earthly power can stop this terror?
That's the signpost up ahead. Your next stop.
The broadcasting from outer space.
And we are good to go.
And we're sailing smooth right into episode 68. It's the podcast from outer space with your boy Rob Scott. We got T-Bag, a.k.a. Adam Narlock, in the house tonight.
Hey guys, thanks for listening.
And as always, it's Ryan Scott.
Ni hao, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, guys, it is episode 68. And, you know, shout out to all the vegans out there. We're getting plant-based this evening. We're going with the Swamp Thing.
Yes, now, how's everybody doing? How's life in old North Carolina there, Adam?
The weather is wilty here.
I'm from North Carolina. I love wearing powder blue. My favorite basketball player is Michael Jordan.
Now, where I'm from is called North Cackalack.
We have the finest of barbecue in the land, young sir.
And on a June evening, you might be just feeling like you're melting on the windowsill like a candy bar in the summertime.
Now, how is North Carolina treating you?
I'm just trying to finish up this first two classes. One step closer to that master's degree. Still in the same spot I was a year ago.
Now, I seen based on your new Instagram. Yes, Adam is still on Instagram, Team Pup and Suds. We didn't get that team Pup and Stud. We didn't get much feedback on what your new name should be from the listeners.
Got a couple of interesting ideas.
Yeah, nothing serious though. And I've gathered you're playing around with puppies or dogs or something, some sort of dog trainer, dog watcher. What are we doing here?
That's it, all the above.
All right, well, there you have it. Once again, follow our very own T-Bag on @TeamPuppandStud.
Must love dogs, ladies.
Now, in this episode, guys, it's back to comics. It's been a while since we've done a comic, right? We've been sticking to conspiracy type stuff. We had the listener requests coming in and got some more that we're working on. So I figure, hell, we got to pepper in a comic, good old-fashioned comic. This episode, we are getting into Swamp Thing, the Defender of the Green, the Avenger of Weed.
The leprechaun of the swamp.
I want the gold.
That's pronounced leprechaun, young Adam. Now, okay, I've got to say, Swamp Thing, absolutely one of my favorites, especially from DC. I think this is only the second DC comic we've done, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I was thinking. Batman's the other one, right?
Yes. Now, if you haven't, okay, I want to also set a precedence with these comic episodes, if you haven't listened to one of these comic episodes, maybe you're a new listener, this is essentially just us. We're talking jive, this is basically a history of the character, the people who help bring it to life. We just kind of explore that type of stuff. These episodes are not like, you don't have to be some crazy comic guy to even enjoy these. These are for novice fans.
Or a girl.
Or you could be a crazy diehard fan, and we're thinking you're even going to like them. You could not even like comics at all, and I'm sure you're going to find something in here. Am I right?
Makes sense to me. And I mean, honestly, I'm just spitballing here, but this is probably the worst film adaptation I've seen since Captain America.
Now, we'll get into opinions on that because I do have some, but, these are essentially for like, the game, the rapper?
The rapper, yes, we're familiar.
Now, he thinks that Captain America is a DC comic. You know that line he has? He says something, he's like mad that DC Comics overlooked me because Captain America is a straight pussy. Now, he could get something out of this episode because Mr. Game, Captain America is a Marvel character. And we're already teaching the game something, so go write that in your lines. And then...
He didn't do his research before he dropped that one.
You got to do your research, Mr. Game. So
next time we're in LA, we'll make a little pit stop. Let them know what's up.
Y'all let me know how that goes.
Now, so you're saying worst. You're saying that Swamp Thing, the film adaptation, 1982, Wes Craven, is worse, would you say, than Captain America?
I would say it's about right on par.
Right on par. Now, would you say it's funnier? Or do you think that Captain America is so bad that it becomes more comical?
I think both in this situation would fall into that category.
And I'm saying, gun to your head, you got to pick one.
I guess I'll go Swamp Thing.
As worse or funnier? Better.
As like funnier because of how bad it is.
Okay. Okay. Wow. That is some harsh criticisms for
And
Mr.
you
Wes
know,
Craven.
shout out to Wes, because this is probably the only movie I've ever seen of his that sucked.
Really?
Wow.
I think it's better than Red Eye.
Alright.
That guy is biased. He likes Red Eye.
I know. I'm well aware of that. All right. So how did you guys did you hear about Swamp Thing as a young lad? Did you know about Swamp Thing? I can speak for Rob when he thought this was Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Which is actually a better film. It didn't suck. Go watch that one instead. If you're about to go watch Swamp Thing, let me just save you the effort.
Now, did you guys know anything? Did you, Teabag, know anything about the Swamp Thing himself?
No, like when I was doing the research, was this a requested topic or did this just get thrown into the mix?
No, this got thrown in the mix. I figure, let's do a comic that maybe not a lot of people have heard of.
It's a Ryan request.
It was my own interest. I mean, I love Swamp Thing, hell of a guy, and I figured, maybe, it's very popular in the comic world, but maybe a lot of like people outside of that wouldn't know about this, and we're showing them something cool,
One of the few topics that Ryan is interested in that doesn't have a porno adaptation as well, I might add.
We'll get to that a little bit later in the outline.
In about 20 minutes.
But so you had no clue, Adam? You just found out about it this past week?
I did. Yeah, and what amazed me is I guess he ties into like Justice League and Batman and like Harley Quinn and stuff. I'd never even heard of the guy though.
Oh yeah, big time DC character. One of DC's most popular characters.
I'm a Marvel through and through.
Now you're a Marvel man. That's no secret.
We all are.
Rob, you too? You said earlier that you love DC over Marvel. When did I
say that?
One of our early episodes, you said you like DC because you're a Batman guy.
I said Batman is my favorite comic book growing up.
All right.
But overall, I would go with Marvel.
We'll find the clip.
Because fuck Superman.
We'll isolate that clip. So let's get into it. Let's get into the creators, the backstory. So how this whole thing came about. Two creators here. One, we got the writer Leonard Norman Ween.
Hell of a name.
This guy was born in New York City, June 12th, 1948. And he actually passed away September 10th, 2017 at the age of 69. So pour one out for this guy.
Perfect age.
Now, anywho, he was raised in the Bronx and Long Island.
Is that just a thing? Like if you grew up in the Bronx and around the 40s, 50s, you're just a comic book guy?
Maybe. I mean, I think some of them came from Manhattan and Brooklyn as well. But, this guy, Bronx and Long Island, he got hooked on comics at the age of 7. Hooked on comics, dude. That's like a new thing I'm developing. It's like hooked on phonics.
New business idea.
Yeah.
We'll go pitch it to Mark.
Yeah, and we'll create comics that teach kids how to read. Adam, you're a teacher. You can help with this, right?
Dude, I'll implement that in my curriculum right away. That's genius.
Yeah, show them Swamp Thing issue 34. He gets hooked on comics at the age of 7. This guy gets an art degree from Farmingdale State College. Now, he always wanted to work in the comic biz from a young age. However, he was mostly concerned with being an artist. And this would actually go on to help him work better with artists as a writer because he said it was like easier for him to describe what was in his head. Being an art guy, he's able to say bing, bang, boom, bust this out,
Bing, bang, boom. Nice.
Now, I was reading an interview with this guy. He was saying when he was a teenager, I guess, DC used to do like a tour every Wednesday. This is like Steven Spielberg at the Paramount lot or whatever. And like once a month, every fucking Thursday, him and his buddies would skip school and they would take this tour. So like DC knew who these guys were. Now when he originally went to go get a job there, they go around, they're saying, hey, we gotta meet this guy Dick, we gotta show this guy Dick our work. And they say,
go get that dick Thursday.
and they say Dick's not in today, let's show your stuff to my boy Joey here, and if he likes it, you're in. So they gave Joe some samples. They waited around, and he came out and said, the art, it's not the greatest, but, if you guys want to do some writing, submit some stories to House of Mystery. I'm looking for writers on House of Mystery. And boom, that's how it all started, So right out of the gate, this guy gets hired freelance and is doing, like, horror type stuff.
Said, hey, I can't see too well in the lobby. Is that Bill Shakespeare over there?
Now, he was saying his biggest influence is as a writer, one of his biggest, probably Rod Serling, huge Twilight Zone guy. Go ahead and check our Twilight Zone episode out on Rod Serling for more of that. Said he was a huge fan of his writing and his work, and also Ray Bradbury.
I mean, who isn't,
Makes sense, that you read some of those old Swamp Things and you're like, hey, I see a little bit of Serling, I see a little bit of Bradbury.
See a little bit of R. Kelly.
Well, don't know about that.
You might.
So yeah, he's originally hired as a freelancer. He's bouncing around story by story, and he makes his way onto the staff. He worked on a few titles here and there. Like he even worked. This was like, again, with a lot of these early guys, it's like they're bouncing around from Marvel to DC. So he worked on like Daredevil for Marvel. He also worked on The Flash, Superman for DC. And he even worked on the semi-anthological occult title, The Phantom Stranger, in 1971. And this guy would actually go on to co-create Wolverine. Bad fucking ass.
Like the Wolverine?
Yes, Marvel Wolverine. So, this guy is a fucking legend. Now, later that same year, 71, he teamed up with Bernie Wrightson, and they struck comic gold, as they say, with the horror character The Swamp Thing. First appearing in House of Secrets 92, that was in July of 71. Now, Len Wein says he came up with the idea for the character while he was riding the subway in Queens. And he later recalled, he didn't have a title, so he kept referring to it as That Swamp Thing I'm Working On. And the rest, they say?
That's history, baby.
Now that sounds a lot like a lot of the girls I've dated.
Now what's this?
The Swamp Thing you're working
That
on?
Swamp Thing that I'm working on.
That's how you get down in North Carolina, guys.
Yikes, dude. So from that same interview, while we're still talking about old fucking Lenny, I thought this was interesting. They're asking him, how does it feel seeing some of the characters that you've helped to create up on the big screen? Now, this, very interesting, and this is going to shed some light on the difference between DC and Marvel for you Marvel heads. Now, he's saying that, awesome. It's cool seeing the work come to life that he helped create. He's saying financially, not that great. And he's saying the difference between DC and Marvel is he sees money from a lot of the characters that he helped create at DC. Because you know how, like, these early guys, again, we also talk about how the rights and stuff, got so convoluted. We usually have our lawyer Rob looking into the rights and how, tangled they get. And then, people end up getting fucked out of their own work and they don't get the rights and stuff
Literally.
like that. Yeah. Now, he is saying that literally, like, he helped create, Lucius Fox, the character Morgan Freeman plays in the...
Morgan Freeman?
Yeah, in the Christian Bale Batmans. This guy also helped create that character, and he still saw money off that from the Nolan films. And he was saying it was fucking badass to see that because he was like... I guess when he was signing the contracts or whatever, this guy was telling him, hey, you should sign up to like get a royalty off this, even though it's like a potentially unimportant character. And he was like, what the hell, I'll do it. Signs a contract. Boom, he's right. Fucking couple decades later, Morgan Freeman on the big screen playing Lucius Fox, and this guy's getting a cut of one of the fucking biggest comic book films of all time,
But, out of all time.
Yeah, but of course, back in '82, they're making fucking Wes Craven Swamp Thing. Nobody thought it was going to blow up the way it did. Now, that brings us into the artist of the thing. We got old fucking Bernie Wrightson. So, Bernie Wrightson, he was born October 27th, 1948. And this guy, once again, we got to pour one out. He died March 18th, 2017 at the age of 68.
Almost made it.
So these guys died the same year, 1 year apart from each other. Isn't that crazy?
Crazy for that one.
Now, Bernie, he was born in Maryland. This guy was basically self-taught in art from watching John Nagy on television. Now, Rob, you're a big art guy. You ever heard of this John Nagy?
Big art guy, yeah, I've heard of him.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess what I gathered, this guy was sort of like one of those Bob Ross type dudes. Like he had a show called Draw with John Nagy, where he would just kind of teach people how to draw like squares and shit and make them into cones. What?
That's all of his shows?
I mean, that's an example.
Okay.
Bernie also learned art by, of course, reading comics, as well as through correspondence from the Famous Artists School. Now, you ever heard of that? Famous Artist School? I guess this is like a mail order place, like one of those, like one of the first like online places.
I was going to say, it sounds like one of those schools where you send them money, they send you a degree. I need to find one of those.
Yeah, like ECPI or like University of Maryland University College. Or those commercials where the guy's like, you spend all day sitting on the couch anyways. Why don't you pick up the phone? Why don't you go ahead and make a call that's going to change your life? And he's like yelling at you when you're just trying to relax and watch some freaking TV.
You spend all day drawing dicks anyways. You might as well get a fucking degree for it.
Yeah, it's like one of those types of schools. Now, his artistic influences were drawn from Albert Dorn, Howard Pyle, and, of course, Frank Frazetta. Now,
Badass.
Of course.
and you can clearly see this stuff in the Swamp Thing iterations. But I pulled a few examples. Check out some of these guys' art below. Pretty fucking badass.
If I had a van, I'd get that third one painted on the side of it. Robin Big style.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll draw the pups on there for you.
There we go.
And your Instagram tag.
Now, Bernie himself, he is most famous as a horror artist. Now, while Swamp Thing remains his most famous work, probably, I'd say, his comic adaptation of Frankenstein is also very notable in his career.
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, that is.
Frankenstein.
And Bernie actually designed the character's visual image of Swamp Thing using a rough sketch that Lynn had given him as a guideline. Now, Lynn had this to say about Bernie becoming a part of the creation of Swamp Thing.
Hey, Bernie had just broken up with a girlfriend, and we're sitting in my car just talking about life, the important things you do when you're like 19, 20 years old. I said, I just wrote a friggin' story that feels kind of the way you feel now. I told him about Swamp Thing, and he said, I gotta draw that.
So yes,
I gotta freaking draw that. What are you freaking talking about? I gotta draw this fucking Swamp Thing.
Yeah, this is Lynn Wein was Tony Soprano. Now, Bernie said of Swamp Thing becoming like a big hit, he said, he kind of knew. He says he thinks that they knew they had something special. There was nothing really around at the time that looked like that, and that was the whole point. They started Swamp Thing completely able to like do their own thing, and they thought, hey, hell, this is going to be a hit. He says it just seemed right. It just seemed something that was going to be a hit. And it did very well for the first 2 years. And he even heard through the grapevine that there was a couple months where it outsold Superman.
Wow.
But that is neither confirmed nor denied.
But we can all agree that it's a way cooler comic, right?
Yes, and nonetheless, it certainly did make a splash in the comic world.
Not just in the swamp.
And this is the last bit about old Bernie before we'll get into the character himself. But Alex Olson, the first, I guess, like, what do you call it? The guy.
Incarnation.
The first guy before he becomes Swamp Thing, the first scientist. He even based that character off of himself. The drawing in the comic. He said that the deadline was super short, and so he had everybody like dress up in these old timey clothes. He took a bunch of pictures, and he would just use those as references for a lot of the panels that he would draw.
That's badass.
Yeah. Now, as we said earlier, first appearance of the character was in House of Secrets 92. This was in July of 1971. Got a cover right there for you guys.
Mm.
And origin story in the comics, okay? So, there's a couple things here.
There's a couple of ways we could do this.
Set in the Victorian era of the 1900s. This is actually badass right from the start, because really you don't see a lot of like modern comic books set in that old of a time. Am I right?
Perhaps not any.
Now this seems to me like it is already more horror. You got like Dracula, Frankenstein, like all this like castle type stuff,
The Mummy.
Yeah.
That's maybe even predating the 1900s.
Yeah, like Superman, Spider-Man, all this shit, it's taking place in cities, crowds, that this was they took it back to the 1900s. They said we're going to throw this thing way back, and essentially Alex Olson,
Not to be confused with the professional skateboarder.
Could be turning pro, might actually even be a pro.
not to be confused with the skateboarder Alex Olson. So he's a big-time science guy. He's down in the swamps of Louisiana.
My.
Yes. Now the weather is wilted down there, and I'm a mere scientist trying to get by in this musty swamp.
Please watch the Jays.
Linda, grab my beakers and such from the chifferold. So, this guy's a scientist down there in the swamps of Louisiana. He's happy. He's got his wife, Linda, by his side. His best friend, Damien, is doing fucking science experiments with him. And
As one would do.
Damien, this is all for you.
yeah, Damien, his best friend, his assistant, secretly loved his wife. And, this is a tale as old as time. He plans to kill Alex and scoop up the grieving widow. This is like some shit you see on Dateline 101, all those fucking crime shows. It's like, I fell in love. If this was in Louisiana, this guy fell in love on the internet, and I had her murder my wife.
The chicks are so horny, it's not even fair.
Yeah, and then this guy he uses the grieving process to scoop up the widow. This predates Wedding Crashers, guys. That's probably where they got that line. And so this is Damien's plan. And then boom, big ol' explosion, mixes the chemicals. He's badly injured. Damien buries him in the swamp. Big mistake. That's his fatal mistake right there. And thus he becomes the humanoid plant Swamp Thing that we know and love. Kind of.
Now, is this like the dad in Goosebumps? That one, don't go in the basement?
This is probably a big influence on that.
Yeah, I'd say this might be an influence of that. It's not anything like that.
Okay. Check.
But you mean like plants growing out of him?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's, well, here, we'll get to that. So he becomes this like humanoid Swamp Thing. Now Linda is like getting suspicious. And, so this Damien fella, he plans to kill her too. But have no fear, Swamp Thing is here. He's here to save his true love, and when he does, she looks at him screaming in horror.
As one would if your former lover looked like a giant plant penis.
Well, she didn't know that's who he was, and he can't speak, and thus he returns to the swamp, heartbroken and alone. Now, this is, okay, is this basically like Quasimodo?
If he was covered in veiny plants.
No, I'm saying like Quasimodo. He's
so veiny.
Why is Quasimodo the hero, but then he doesn't get the girl? Because he's too ugly.
Because he's a hunchback.
That's fucked up, dude.
Well, in real life, Esmeralda doesn't want to bang that guy. Let's be honest.
Well, it's a sad story, am I right?
Well, this guy actually was married to the chick, so that's just fucked up on her part.
Okay, so this is more of you're thinking a reverse Beauty and the Beast?
It could be.
He was the charming prince. He turned into the beast, not he's the beast and then turns into the prince.
Well, technically, if we want to get into that, isn't he a prince that gets turned into the beast and then she actually truly loves him and he turns back into the prince?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is like a 2/3 reverse Beauty and the Beast, you'd say?
And then mix in a little Quasimodo action.
Yeah.
Because he's so goddamn ugly.
Pepper in a little Quasimodo, and we got Swamp Thing. Okay, here we go.
Because Plant Penis was just not a good comic book name for children.
So
Some girls like me.
now, okay, we'll get into that because I've got a whole spiel there. But Swamp Thing, so Swamp Thing number 1, 1972, Homeboy gets his own run, his own title, and they change the name to Alec Holland. And thus, the Swamp Thing that we truly know and love. And honestly, they didn't really change much on the basic origin story. Aside from, they update it to modern times. It's still down in Louisiana. And they tweak a few things here and there, like agents from this like industry plant a bomb. He's doused in chemicals, lit on fire, runs into the swamp. This is exactly like the scene in the movie.
Which is terrible.
Now, fast forward a little bit, and we get the saga of Swamp Thing. And this was by legendary comic writer Alan Moore. You might be familiar with From Hell, V for Vendetta, Watchmen. This guy is this guy was like an atom bomb in the comic industry, and Swamp Thing was really like where he got his foothold in America. And I mean, we'll have to do an entire episode on Alan Moore and some of the comics he did. But they only revived Swamp Thing in 1982 to capitalize off Wes Craven's film, which, again, we will get into. Now, once Alan Moore gets a hold of this thing, by issue number 20 is when the shit really hits the fan. As I said, we owe an entire episode to Alan Moore himself, and we'll probably do like a tie-in with Watchmen, because I think we had a Watchmen episode planned, didn't we?
We might. Spoiler alert.
But yeah, I mean, this guy's a fucking character in himself, and he's really an enigma. He's an interesting guy because he fucking hates anything mainstream. He even hates, like, he did The Killing Joke, which is like arguably one of the most famous Batman comics, and he hates it. And he hates mainstream comics. He would probably hate this podcast, but this guy,
even if we did one that dedicated to him, he probably would hate it.
Yeah, he would probably hate it. And this guy, he does his run on Swamp Thing, and this is one of the most praised runs in all of comics. And it basically was headed towards cancellation, and they were like, "Hey, Alan, do whatever the fuck you want with this thing." So he
With this old Swamp Thing.
Yeah, so he changes the origin story by having Holland die in a hail of gunfire, and
Nice.
now they do like an autopsy on him, and you find out that the chemical mixture in the swamp didn't turn him into a plant monster. It made a plant monster and then in turn downloaded his consciousness to imitate the human form. So it's basically a plant that thought it was Alec Holland.
Mind blow.
Yeah. And, Moore would later reveal that in an attempt to connect the original one-off Swamp Thing story from House of Secrets to the main Swamp Thing canon, there had been dozens, hundreds of Swamp Things past since the dawn of humanity. All these versions of the creature were designated defenders of the Parliament of Trees, an elemental community which rules a dimension known as the Green that connects all plant life on Earth. So, he really started adding more like environmental concerns. Like he made them about like certain things, environmental concerns, pollution, like what it means to be human. Like all those different elements were explored in Alan Moore's run of Swamp Thing.
Sounds like he was hitting some trees.
Yeah. Smoking weed and shit. Oh yeah, he was dropping acid. He was fucking doing mushrooms. He's doing everything, dude.
Hey, well, when we sell those podcast hats, there we go. He's going to call it the Green.
There we go.
The weed smoking hats.
So, basically he's having a jolly old time with the title, and Swamp Thing easily could have become the face of Greenpeace. Am I right? They even had like a Greenpeace ad for the show that came out in the 90s. Greenpeace did an ad that was talking about like pollution and protecting the swamps. And I'm thinking Swamp Thing is like that Greta Thunberg girl. If she was a plant superhero, right? Am I right?
I mean,
like he's fighting to defend the green. He's 100% organic, plant-based, vegan.
that somehow downloaded consciousness.
He's a vegan superhero. Although, wouldn't he be a cannibal if he was a vegan?
Is he eating plants?
That's what I'm saying. If he himself was a vegan, wouldn't he in turn be a cannibal? Or would vegans be also his enemy?
I don't understand that.
He is a plant.
So why would they be his enemy?
They only eat plants.
But he also thinks he's a human, but he's a plant.
He is a plant.
But he thinks he's a human.
I know, but he is not. He is a plant.
He's defender of the green, dude. Come on.
Yeah, so he doesn't want people to eat the green then, doesn't he? So would this guy be a full Joe Rogan carnivore?
Who knows? You got to ask what he's eating for dinner.
Okay.
Also,
A lot of questions here.
If he is a plant, then he doesn't really have to eat anything. Just
Well, yeah, he gets his
baby.
Yes, photosynthesis. Okay, now we're cooking. So he's like that's like sugar, right? That's pure sugar.
Maybe.
And chlorophyll?
More like borophyll.
photosynth.
So he's okay because he does. He reaches his hand up in the movie. Spoiler alert! And grows his other arm like Piccolo.
Like Piccolo. I'm pretty sure that this was around before Dragon Ball Z.
Well, seems to be a little bit of confusion on if vegans would be his enemy or not. But nonetheless, Saga of Swamp Thing. Check it out. Fucking amazing run. When Alan Moore picked up the title. And the Saga of Swamp Thing, interesting fact, first mainstream comic book series to completely abandon the Comics Code Authority's approval. Alan Moore just basically said, fuck you guys. And this is when he started looking at those more complex themes. We talked about like the Comics Code stuff in, I think, our Stan Lee episode.
Yep.
Yeah, this guy said, fuck you to all those guys. Now, Swamp Thing's powers. So physically, the Swamp Thing is a chlorokinetic shape-shifting elemental entity or an avatar of the green, which is basically like a hive mind for all life force of every plant on Earth. And this is actually interesting because I was listening to some Radio Lab podcast that was talking about the insane connection of like trees and fungus. It's like roots are really like interconnected, like way more than scientists thought. And all the trees like talk to each other. So this is like some like happening shit, But essentially that's what they're exploring in this comic book. That's what the green is. Now,
is that the original intention, or this is Alan Moore's recreation of that?
Oh, yeah. The green, I believe, was created in his comic book. But, I mean, that's what really gave... Like, that's what made him become such a popular character and gave him all the background because he expanded on the mythos and the powers and stuff.
Going Captain Planet with it.
Yeah, so he can. Well, Captain Planet's a fucking pussy.
That's what I was.
Captain
so
Planet's a
is Swamp
giant pussy compared to Swamp Thing.
Swamp Thing's a giant plant that thinks it's a human.
He's super strong. He has the strength of every single plant on Earth.
Well, just put him in the dark, and he shrivels up like a little bitch.
I don't know if that's true or not, but he can basically
Throw him in a
control.
blender.
He can control all plant life, fire, water, earth, all the elements. He's super fucking jacked. He regrows limbs like Piccolo. He can make new bodies out of plants. He's also became a member of the Justice League Dark lineup.
That's badass.
Got one of those official membership cards.
Okay, there you go. And despite what Rob says, he is better than Captain Planet.
Wow.
I don't know about that.
Shots
Captain
fired.
Planet. Unbelievable. We'll do you want to put together a Captain Planet episode for us?
Yeah, I do.
Fucking hated that show. Now,
Oh, you like pollution? Great.
no, this is one of Swamp Thing's weaknesses, pollution. As I said, this is fucking humanoid plant version of Greta Thunberg. Hates pollution. Highly dangerous to plant life that makes up his body and the plant life that he's connected to. By weakening the green, you weaken the Swamp Thing.
Well, Captain Planet brings pollution down to 0.
Dude, it's just like that show. Every time I was a kid, I felt like I was being tricked. Like it was really educational. And I was like, I don't want to fucking learn. I want to watch some badass cartoons. Put Johnny Quest on. I don't want to watch fucking Captain Planet 20 times before my Johnny Quest. I just want to see Johnny Quest and Haji going on their adventures.
Well, sometimes you got to fight pollution first, baby.
A lot of animosity towards Captain Planet.
I couldn't tell.
Now, let's get into some of this controversy, as we always do with these, older creations. Tell me what you guys think of this, Let me know if you're tracking.
Okay.
So, Len Wein was roommates with Marvel writer Gary Conway. Now, a few months before the first appearance of Swamp Thing, which was July of 71, Conway introduced Man-Thing. This was in May of 71. He was a mute swamp monster. He came about when a scientist dies and is transformed by a mysterious force of unknown chemicals. This sounding familiar? Now, Ween even wrote an unpublished Man-Thing story for Marvel before he went to DC. Now, is this a straight up, here's the cover of Man-Thing. What do you guys think? Is this a straight up steal or is this a tweak?
I'll say it's a tweak. It looks kind of like the Mothman.
The tweak?
It was looking like a Mothman.
It looks like a blatant ripoff.
Okay, so you're thinking it's a steal?
It's a ripoff, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, a tweak. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh,
No,
Transformers,
that's not a tweak.
Transformers, GoBots, Coke, Pepsi, Gatorade, Powerade.
Coke and Pepsi are the same thing.
Swamp Thing, Man Thing.
Oh, so you're telling me if you're an employee at Coca-Cola, you're also an employee at Pepsi? I don't think so.
Pepsi shouldn't even exist, in my opinion.
So you're saying, Adam, you're saying this is a straight up steal. Rob, you're saying this is a tweak.
Show this cover on Instagram. Let the people decide. This is a blatant.
Oh, I'll do a voting poll. Now you're thinking,
It's an artist's interpretation.
okay, so here we go. So Marvel never took any action against DC. Now this is possibly because the argument can be made that both characters are a derivative of the Heap, created in 1942. Now the Heap was a World War I German pilot who was shot down over a swamp, probably by Snoopy. And
Story of the Red Baron.
yeah. Now, due to mysterious forces of some chemicals, he becomes a mute green monster composed of living vegetation.
Can these motherfuckers in the 40s think of some new fucking ideas?
Boom, there you go, the Heap. So one can assume that Marvel probably had the foresight to say, hey, if we sue DC over Swamp Thing, it could be thrown out on the grounds that both of us ripped off the Heap?
You guys ever
That's fair.
You guys ever think maybe this just backtracks to our previous episode, old Lab 257, where some chemicals cause a major fucking disturbance?
Well, this is a comic book creation, fiction.
Or is it?
That was possibly the government hiring an ex-Nazi and leaking a
And then a germ,
damning virus.
And then a Nazi gets shot down, lands in some chemicals, turns into the Heap.
So what are we thinking with the Heap, Man Thing, Swamp Thing?
I never even heard of the Heap, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, you weren't a kid in 1942. This was like what Granddad Henry was reading. You know,
Oh, that's not Hollywood.
when he was over there in the trenches of World War II.
Yeah, I'm
fighting
sure he was
Nazis.
flipping through pages of the fucking Heap.
Yeah. So the Heap. Now, this is what I believe Len Wein was saying about the character. He was saying that he thinks they're all different. Every one of them is a different character. Just because they're swamp monster doesn't make them any more the same than the fact that Superman, Hawkman, and the Angel can all fly.
Who the fuck is the Angel?
Well, look him up. Comic book character. So one of the things that that most people, oh yeah, he even said in that interview that he wrote the second Man Thing story, and he actually claims that he is the person responsible for the tagline of Man Thing, which is "Whatever knows fear burns at the Man Thing's touch."
Sounds like herpes.
Wow.
Well, so it's like, I guess he created this because if
He got an STD.
no,
Oh.
if you weren't pure in heart, you would like get fucked up if Man Thing touched you. I've never read any of the Man Thing. Maybe I should have done that before this episode.
Sounds super gay.
Well, yeah, you know, it's no Swamp Thing.
A man thing that burns when you touch it.
No, he burns people.
Yeah, probably don't Google that.
He burns other people.
Perfect. There's our Pornhub title right there. We found it.
So, do you guys
So
want to
he
get
transmits it to other people.
if
That's his secret power.
if the person, I guess, is not like good natured?
So a whore.
Yes, or a
Perhaps.
bad person. Rob.
A whore.
That would explain the green penis.
Does Man Thing have a penis? I don't
He's
think
got a
either
man
of them
thing.
do. He is a Man Thing. Also, yeah, Man Thing. Can we just like that title? They didn't think like, hey guys, maybe we think of something else. Go back to the fucking writing room.
A man thing
The Man Thing.
that burns at the touch. Whatever knows fear burns at the
Oh
man
no,
thing's
not
touch.
it's that's
yeah,
no
it is.
fear. So let's get into the Swamp Thing film. All right, 1982. It's had a budget of $2.5 million. Now I want to know where all that money went.
To firecrackers, apparently.
I mean, I know they had to rent like a helicopter, but goddamn,
Those things were expensive back then.
yeah.
That was a mill right there.
I mean, probably, you know.
Was it wasn't like the state of Carolina supposed to oh no, never mind. It's something different. Never mind. Edit that out.
Okay. Well, we'll get there. I think you're talking about
Yeah.
the show, right?
I'm talking about this show. That's what I was thinking. You're right.
Yeah, you're popping a little too early there.
Just like the man thing does sometimes.
Yeah. So, the 82 film, budgeted $2.5 million. This is Swamp Thing's first journey into a medium other than comic books. We got the self-titled film directed by Wes Craven himself, and it starred actor, stuntman Dick Durock as the Swamp Thing and Ray Wise as Alec Holland. Now, it's also free on Tubi, and this is not a sponsor.
Although it could be. Shout out Tubi.
Yeah,
Check it out.
Yeah, Tubi. Check it out. TUBI. It's a free app. They've got both Swamp Things up there for free, and they have every single full moon feature. If you're a fan of those, like old Puppet Master films and like movies like Big Bikini Bang Out Bungalow and Avocado Jungle.
That's what Ryan was looking up. Apparently.
Yeah, like Bikini Babes from Mars and shit like that. But check it out on Tubi. Let us know what you think. Wes Craven, Swamp Thing. Now, what did you guys think of the film? Because you both watched it in preparation for this, yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Not on YouTube, actually.
Okay. You're back on YouTube.
Oh, edit that out too.
So you're back on
YouTube.
You're back on YouTube. You found it on YouTube. Find it
We
there
have a
too.
love-hate relationship.
Now, what did you guys think of the film? Any specific scenes? Anything you want to discuss? Let's fill some of this dead air.
Probably Wes Craven's worst film that I've ever seen.
Okay. Now, what makes it this way?
Well, you can just watch it for yourself and see that the special effects are god awful. Guy
No,
looks
you
like
don't think they were good?
guy looks like he's wearing fucking rubber gloves.
I will say, yes, the suit was very,
Low quality.
very Michael Keaton Batman. Like,
Whoa.
Wow.
you know,
Don't
just-
disrespect Mike like
it looks
that.
like he's in a neck brace anytime he goes to move.
Yeah, at least he's not wearing rubber fucking like dishwashing gloves with fucking dicks and shit on it and moss.
Dicks. He does look like a giant phallic green
Yeah.
penis, I will say. And there was like the first scene, like the scientists show up and the main female, her name is, they call her by her last name, which is Cable. And she just like changes into a Hawaiian shirt to go into the swamp.
For the entire movie, pretty much, except for when she's showing her tits off.
And then there's also this scene where she like fires a gun and it just does like a blatant cut to her like dropping it.
Yeah, that wasn't in the 2.5 mil budget to go through and actually edit the fucking thing.
Yeah, like they were just like, this is as good as we're gonna get it, Wes. So take it or leave it.
Hey, Wes, what happened there, bud?
Also, the bad guys look like they were just like playing paintball.
And the lead bad guy looks like a fucking dollar store Rambo.
He looks like Rambo with a Jerry curl.
Like, okay, we can't exactly rip off Sylvester Stallone, so just put on this fucking wig and the red bandana.
And then every single one of them has a different type of camo on.
Yeah.
Now, even the lab itself where he's working just reminded me of some shit that like we would have done making old movies as kids. Like they just have beakers that are filled with like dry ice and like glow stick fluid.
They did
Just
a good
like,
job
you
of
know,
making it look like a fucking
switching it
shanty. though.
around. Yeah, it just looks like a shanty lab, like a meth lab. And now I will say
very
though,
common in Louisiana.
now I will say the fire scene where he lights on fire and becomes Swamp Thing. I'm gonna say that's pretty bad. That was pretty badass. That guy was on fire like
for a good 2 minutes.
yeah,
And then literally jumped into a swamp
yeah, the
with
stunt,
God knows what in there.
dude, the stunt guy for that scene is insane. So when you watch the movie, keep that in mind.
Oh, dick.
Now we talked about the Swamp Thing suit. Now there's also like the guy in the end that gets transformed into the midget like rat thing.
Oh my God.
Looks like it's
dude.
from that show Scare Tactics,
It does.
This guy gets transformed into a midget, and then tell me what the hell happens in the last, fourth of that movie. Anton Arcane turns into a fucking wild boar head and is fighting Swamp Thing with a sword? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Just tracking him through the swamp with a
turns
fucking
into, like-
medieval sword
Yeah, a medieval sword, and he turns into like
that
a,
he just finds in his fucking mansion.
yeah, a boar's head, but he has like chainmail on.
Hey man, budgetary concerns. They were working with what they had.
2.5 mil.
In '82, so that's
Unreal.
probably God knows what nowadays.
Yeah, check out the film. Let us know what you guys think. Now, this I did find hilarious. This is a classic mix-up right here. Let me know what you guys think of this. In August of 2000, MGM released the film on DVD in the U.S. Now, the DVD was labeled as being PG rated. PG, not PG-13. It's a 91-minute cut of the film. MGM accidentally used the 93-minute international cut of the film, which contained more nudity and sexual content than the theatrical cut. And in May of 2002, It took 2 years before a woman rented the disc from Blockbuster Video and complained about the discrepancy. But it's essentially just more of this chick's boobs in a swamp scene.
Which, if you're interested to know, there is not a porno rendition, but when we redid the research, there's just a clip on Pornhub of all the nudity scenes in any of Swamp Thing's movies put together, knocked up style for your viewing pleasure.
Yeah, so if you want to check that out,
Which I wouldn't recommend because of the other videos that will pop up.
Now, Return of Swamp Thing. Any of you guys watch this?
Is that the one where he's fighting the little alien-looking things?
Maybe.
They got like the big old brown heads.
Sounds familiar.
I mean, this one was a little bit better.
Yeah, Rob
Give it
caught the
that.
tail end of that. Also free on Tubi and Amazon Prime. Sequel hit screens in '89, much lower budget and met with significantly less success.
But if you watched it side by side, you'd think that this one had a bigger budget.
Yeah, I thought the special effects in this one were much more badass, although this one did. Okay. Can I bare my soul? I'm going to say the second film was much more entertaining. Better Swamp Thing suit, would you say?
Yeah, definitely.
Better Swamp Thing suit. He doesn't look like a giant green dick. Although he does sound like Christian Bale in American Psycho when he talks. Like they make him talk and he's almost like, hey, like, he sounds like Bender when he's doing the thing in fucking, when he's mocking the jock in Breakfast Club. How'd you like to go fishing this weekend? Gee, Dad. That's what he sounds like when he talks. Now the bad guys, they also had better suits. They look like a knockoff version of the Ghostbusters. And I'm gonna say, even though it looks dated now, these special effects are better. Like similar to Tron, those like 80s effects that are very trippy.
DOS effects.
Yeah, 80s effects. They got in there like lightning and he heals the girl in the end and there's this green glow, this like neon going all over. Very fucking badass. Check out The Return of Swamp Thing. And there's some great one-liners in there. And also Heather Locklear if you're into that. Although I was confused by the sex scene in this film. She has sex with him, but he turns into a man he regurgitates this like root and she eats it and then he turns into a man for them to hump and then he turns back into the Swamp Thing.
Tale as old as time, dude.
And it looks like a Michael Bolton video. Or a
Probably has that type of music
or
going to it, too.
who's the German crooner?
Crooner.
David Hasselhoff. It looks like one of his old videos.
Been spending a little too much time in the sand there, pal.
Yeah, that was funny the first time I heard it. And now also, okay, going off of that sex scene, as Rob is looking up Swamp Thing porn, this is now in my search history. Dendrophilia. You know what this is? This literally means love of trees.
Tree huggers.
So this is a term for somebody that may refer to people who are sexually attracted or aroused by trees. Because I was looking up to see, are there people who are sexually like aroused by plants?
I'm sure there are.
No, well, I think trees is the closest we get. And I guess some people are out there banging
Fucking
trees. Yeah, they're called dendrophilia. Dendrophiles, I guess.
Gives it a whole new meaning to wood, right?
Yeah, and now
Getting some of that hardwood.
so there you go. If we have any dendrophiles out there, let us know how this stuff works.
Or don't.
Now, at the very least, I'm gonna say the intro to this movie is definitively more badass, and probably the most badass of any comic intro, in my opinion. We got fucking CCR coming in, Born on the Bayou, and it's like a mashup of all these classic Swamp Thing comics. Very fucking badass.
I mean, anytime there's helicopters or a swamp, you better have CCR in there.
Exactly.
Or get the fuck out.
Yes. Now, with both of the movies, they kind of moved away from the horror aspect of the comic and went towards a more comedy, campy route, which I think worked better in the second movie. Like, they almost knew it was a joke, and it's similar to a trauma film, like Toxic Avenger or something. It becomes like a cult classic because it's so bad that it's good. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I'm much more interested in the horror aspect. I would love to see a full-on horror Swamp Thing film.
Maybe we just pull a old Steven Spielberg and just write our own, go down there and start making it one day.
Okay, yeah.
Just get our own office.
Well, it's
Universal.
not the 50s anymore. Times have changed, you know?
You'd want your daughter to be a sex worker?
What the fuck?
Jesus Christ.
See,
You have to
you-
expand for the listeners on that now, Teabag.
I sent you guys the article. I guess Steven Spielberg's daughter is like a sex worker, and she's proud of it.
Yeah, she just wants to make her own movies. It's fine.
She enjoys making other people happy.
What's her name?
Sandra Spielberg. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
I don't know her name.
Okay, well, she's going to be the Spielberg of the porn industry. Now, the TV show. I have not seen the live action TV show, but I guess in July of 1990, USA Network premiered Swamp Thing. Same guy, Dick Durock, playing a modified version of the Return of Swamp Thing costume. It took a deliberate turn away from the campy themes of the 89 film, and it leaned more towards Wes Craven's darker version, but still not that dark. Lasted 72 episodes till 93. Any of you guys seen an episode of this?
I saw one where he was talking to a guy had like some English or Irish accent, and he was trying to have the Swamp Thing bring his wife back to life. I don't know. It was weird, man. I couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah, it was live action?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to check that out. Now, cartoon is actually pretty fucking badass. This is Deke Entertainment.
That's what that is, man. I'm
Deke
not asking.
Entertainment. We got Swamp Thing, the animated series. This debuted on Fox Kids in April of 91. And
Just like Ryan.
the animation style was similar to Troma's Toxic Crusaders. Only lasted 5 episodes. You know, neither of the shows were very successful critically or commercially, but the live action series did develop a cult following similar to the films, which I'm assuming is just because it goes hand in hand with the films. And there was even an action figure line by Kenner and a video game by THQ.
Oh, we got to get our hands on that, boys.
Produced for the animated series. Now, have you seen any of the video gameplay or anything, Adam? Teabag?
Nah, I was gonna look that up and I completely forgot. I honestly started watching the movies and stuff, and I was like, "Nah, there's no way they made a video game based off of this." But
Yeah,
maybe I'm
so
wrong.
The cartoon's actually probably the best rendition of it.
yeah, cartoon's badass, and we'll play a little sample here for you of the intro theme song. So just a blatant ripoff of Wild Thing, as that.
Just picture Charlie Sheen coming in
Yeah.
from the swamp,
Or perhaps a blatant ripoff of Man Thing.
But I'm talking the
or
song.
the tape.
Is there a song called Man Thing?
Probably if you look hard enough.
Look it up. Let me know.
Not want to look that up, though.
Now, yeah, cartoon
Man Thing
similar.
musical.
Cartoon similar to like all those animated series we grew up on, you know, X-Men, Spider-Man. Check it out. Fucking badass. And as Teabag mentioned earlier, he pops up here and there in some crossovers like Justice League Dark, that sort of shit. You'll see him pop up here and there.
Voiced by Mark Hamill, actually.
Oh yeah, very very cool. Mark Hamill, dude, he's a legend in the DC animated voicing game. Also played the Joker. Now, let's get into how DC basically fucked up the new show. So DC, it's no secret. They're trying to do their whole cinematic universe thing, not doing that great. Am I wrong?
Well, have you seen the new Suicide Squad yet?
Is that a fair assessment, though, that I could say it's not doing great? We got fucking Batman versus Superman,
Sucked.
Shazam. Did anybody see that yet? Wonder Woman.
Nah.
Wonder Woman, not that bad, though. I'll say probably of all the DC's movies, Wonder Woman, probably the best one. Now, they make their own streaming platform, just like Disney.
Who doesn't these days? Am I right?
And it's badass. I see that they're doing a Swamp Thing show, and I say, okay, this looks badass. They signed on James Wan from Saw, The Conjuring, Insidious. I'm thinking, okay,
Gonna be scary.
horror. They're on the right track. This is going to be badass. I buy the platform just for this show. So I'm about halfway through the show. They cancel the show before they even drop the whole series. It was cut from 13 episodes to 10 in order for them to change the ending. And this seemed to be the first thing they were doing right. I was 3 episodes in. I was hooked. It was fucking badass. The acting was great. The horror aspect was great. James Wan was doing the producing. Fucking badass. And they say, oh, we're canceling it. Nobody fucking knows why. I guess, was this your rumor you were talking about, Adam?
They ran out of money.
Yeah, I guess the state of Carolina was supposed to give them like 20 or 40 million, and somehow they came up with 12 million. I guess there was a miscommunication there. It's supposed to be a budget issue.
Now, I was looking that up, but I heard that was like debunked. Like
Right.
That wasn't even the true reason. And even the actor, I was reading an interview with the main actor, and he was saying they wouldn't tell him why it was canceled. But the show was doing great. It was like the highest watched on there besides maybe Doom Patrol, which actually was also badass. But apparently, what I gathered is Warner Brothers wants to do their own streaming service, and they want to wrap DC into all of that. Because now everybody's doing it, Disney, fucking Netflix, Hulu. Now all the studios are going to start doing it. And you've got Warner Brothers who wants to basically make the DC streaming platform onto theirs. So they just said, oh, yeah, we'll just scrap this. One of the best things that DC's done, I guess,
arguably in the last decade,
live action in a while. And they just go ahead and fuck it all up.
Thanks a lot, DC.
Unbelievable.
I hope you're listening to this.
Unbelievable, DC.
Fucking
and,
assholes.
And the fans, DC, they claim, oh, we're for the fans. We're doing this for the fans. We love you guys. It was actually a kind of cool app. You could read backlogs of comics. I read a lot of the Alan Moore run on there. I read a lot of the original Swamp Thing run on there. I read a lot of good Batman ones on there when I was doing research for the Batman episode. And they go ahead. And now they're just scrapping the whole thing. Oh, go ahead and fuck yourself. We got your $7 a month. Fuck you. So you know what I did, DC? I canceled my membership. Until you figure out your shit, until you get all your fucking shit together and start doing some quality shows that are actually going to stay on the platform, then I'm back.
Get all your shit and get it together.
You got me back. Now, the future of Swamp Thing looks pretty uncertain for right now.
Pretty dismal.
Although Warner Brothers is considering making a Swamp Thing movie due to how well the character was received in that 2019 show.
But they'll probably go ahead and fuck it up.
Now, again, this is just talk. This is just rumor. This is like water cooler talk, I guess. It's like the TV series, the movie would be horror genre.
James Wan working on there?
Now they don't know. I mean, this is just talk. They're just kind of spitballing this idea here. They're blowing smoke out their asses.
As they usually do at DC.
Yeah. I guess it would be unconnected from the show. It would be like a standalone horror story, but I think that would be fucking awesome. I want to see more of that. Like, I would love to see some of the old like horror comics be made into movies that are strictly horror movies. You know, we've seen all the Marvel movies, you know, they're for the kids and stuff. I get it. You know, we love them too. But I want to see some blood and guts. I want to see some
thing?
like Deadpool. Look at how big of a hit Deadpool was. He's cutting off people's heads. He's getting ripped in half, and it's a huge success. I want to see some Man Thing, Swamp Thing. You know, some classic horror stuff like that. It'd be fucking badass, don't you think?
I mean, I personally don't want to see any Man Thing blood and guts, but that's just me.
But I would definitely see some Swamp Thing. I want to see some old Swamp Thing comics, some people conjuring stuff up with Ouija boards, Swamp Thing fighting little alien creatures. Maybe have him go off planet. I think it'd be fucking badass to see a full DC.
Whoa, could he go off planet? He's a plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can
No, that
control.
was his whole thing.
He controls plants anywhere in the universe.
Okay.
He's fucking badass, dude. I'm telling you.
Yeah, he's no Man Thing. He's a plant thing.
He beats Captain Planet's ass any day.
Well, don't know about that.
Now, and I think also this would even be cool to see in like, you know how they're doing the Star Wars one-offs?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
This would probably never happen, but I think it would be very cool if Disney did like a horror-oriented one-off of Star Wars.
I don't see Disney doing that.
Bobby Bones got that script. Darth Vader.
Yeah, dude, some evil Sith shit, fucking real horror, real scary. It'd be fucking badass, dude. Little twist, we get James Wan in, and that dude from Insidious turns out he's actually Darth Maul.
There we go. Because we all know he did not die in that pit.
Yep, and he's coming back with the spider legs.
A little tweak on it.
Yeah, you know, we tweaked that a little bit. But yeah, Swamp Thing, future undecided. They canceled the goddamn show. It's a good show, man. I was really into it, but of course, leave it to DC to fuck it up. And hopefully they do a movie and it's a big hit because I think Swamp Thing deserves more recognition. I think Greenpeace is really fucking up by not adopting Swamp Thing as the face of the company. And I think, you know, even like imagine an ad on like Leonardo DiCaprio's Instagram with Swamp Thing. He's like shaking hands and he's like, I stand with Swamp Thing. And it's like
got the theme song going on.
Yeah, it's like an environmental ad about pollution and how it's bad.
Could also do that with Captain America.
Well, DM old Leo on Instagram. See if he's open to the idea. Maybe we even get Leonardo DiCaprio to be Alec Holland in the movie.
That's a stretch.
I like it.
We even get his company to produce the movie. I mean, we know, guys, we know Leonardo's all about the environment. We make a Swamp Thing movie based on the Alan Moore run that is like about, it's a metaphor for being environmentally conscious. You know, let's not destroy the planet, watch pollution. There's mercury in the water, you know, shit like that. I think we're onto something. We're coming up. We're doing a lot of soft pitches in these podcasts, and we're copywriting, trademarking, and we're cooking with gas.
Yep.
And I think we need to, you know, put some of this stuff into practice.
Okay.
So if we have any screenwriters out there, drop us a line. Let us know. We'd love to work with you.
I thought you were a screenwriter.
No, I am not. You know, there you have it. Swamp Thing. I mean, what do you guys think? Any other final thoughts you want to say? What do we got for TLDL? Do we want to sum up the character, the man himself, the message to the children?
No TLDL this week. I think you did a good job summing it up. I do want to go back and watch that animated miniseries now. Just to hear the theme song.
I want to pitch an idea to Leo now, so we need to get on that, boys.
And I want Rob to put together a Captain Planet episode.
I will, dude. It's coming. It's in the fucking pipes.
Put it on the board.
I'm going to burn it just like Swamp Thing, dude.
Well, there you have it,
Love
guys.
those trees.
check out Swamp Thing if you hadn't. Definitely read Alan Moore's run if you're interested in anything Swamp Thing related. Check out the movies. Like I said, they're free if you download the app Tubi. That's Tubi, and this is not a sponsored ad.
Although it could be.
And if
Hit
you'd
us
like
up.
more information, I wanted to cite dc.fandom.com, House of Secrets, issue 92, geek.com, an article by K. Thor Jensen, and nerdteam30.com for the Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson interviews. Check that out if you're interested in more details on the creation of Swamp Thing or anything Swamp Thing related.
Or you just want to nerd out.
Yeah.
A lot of nerd sites.
And there you have it on that.
As always, thanks for listening, guys. We love to interact with our listeners, and you can get in contact with us at our website, podcastfromouterspace.com. Also, we're on the gram, Podcast from Outer Space, or, shoot us an email, podcastfromouterspace@gmail.com.
And stay tuned. Should have some new stuff coming pretty soon. And on that,
I do want to thank those of you who have added me on Instagram. I've had some nice chats with some people. Wanted to shout out. Can we call them? Am I going to get banned from the podcast if I tell people to check out something besides our podcast?
Yeah, you're banned, dude.
yeah.
Just
dude.
stop right there.
Banned.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry.
I'm kidding, dude. Say
No.
what you want to say.
Shout out to our sisters in podcasting. Check them out. They got a lot of the same humor, a lot of the same topics. And with that...
And what's the name? You didn't say the fucking name.
Cut the whole thing out.
That was fine. Just say the fucking name of the podcast.
If you enjoy our content, be sure to check out our sisters in podcasting over at Speakin' Spooky. Two lovely ladies who have a similar sense of humor to us, talk about some of the same things, cover it from a slightly different aspect. You get a little feminine perspective.
Well, I was going to say I need to catch up. I was listening to a few of those. Pretty good stuff. So, yep, shout out to them. Check them out, Speaking Spooky. And on that,
So long, and thanks for all the fish.
This is my attack on your world! You read your words, serving the door! So the friendship for